The captain steps out the cockpit for less than a minute, maybe to use the laboratory. A completely normal thing on a completely normal flight. When he comes back, the door won't open. He knocks, then he pounds. He calls his first officer's name through the metal. On the other side, the man he trained beside is sitting calmly at the controls, and he has already decided that no one on this plane is going home. This is the story of Germanwings Flight 9525. 150 people, a routine hop across the Mediterranean, and 10 minutes that changed how every airline on Earth thinks about the cockpit door. In this episode, you'll hear what the black box recorded in those final minutes. You will learn how a single locked door turned a safety feature into a trap. And you'll find out what the investigation revealed about a system that was supposed to catch this and didn't. It's the morning of March 24th, 2015. Germanwings Flight 9525 is a short hop Barcelona, Spain, up to Düsseldorf in Germany, roughly 2 hours in the air. The aircraft is an Airbus A320, registration DAIPX. It's a 24 years old but well maintained. The technical log shows only minor cosmetic issues. A workhorse in good shape. In the left seat, it's Captain Patrick Zonderheimer, 34 years old. 10 years of flying around, 6,000 hours in the air. Almost 4,000 of them in the exact type of aircraft. Experienced, trusted. In the right seat is the first officer, 27 years old. He joined Germanwings less than 2 years earlier. 630 hours of flight time. On paper, an ordinary young pilot at the start of a promising career. Behind them, in the cabin, are 144 passengers and 4 flight attendants. People from 18 different countries. 2 opera singers heading home from a performance. Families coming back from holiday. And a group of 16 teenagers and 2 teachers from a high school in the German town of Haltern am See, on their way home from a student exchange in Spain. 150 people in total. An ordinary flight with ordinary lives on board. The takeoff is normal. The climb is normal. The aircraft levels off at its cruising altitude, 38,000 feet, more than 7 miles above the ground. Everything about this flight is routine. The weather is fine. The aircraft is healthy. Air traffic control has no concerns. Then at around 10:30 in the morning, the captain says he's leaving the cockpit. He asks the first officer to take over the radio. The first officer says he can manage. Then the captain unlocks the door, steps out, and the door clicks shut behind him. For the first time, the first officer is alone at the controls. Seconds after that door closes, the first officer reaches for the autopilot. He changes the selected altitude from 38,000 feet all the way down to 100 feet, the lowest setting in the dial allows. The aircraft obeys. Smoothly, deliberately, it begins to descend. And here is the detail that turned this from a tragedy into something colder. Investigators later found out that on the earlier flights that same morning, Düsseldorf down to Barcelona, the first officer had done the same thing while briefly alone. He would dial the altitude down toward 100 feet, then back up again, a rehearsal. A dry run that no one on the ground noticed because the plane never actually left its flight path. The second time, he wasn't rehearsing. From the moment that door closed to the moment of impact, about 10 minutes passed. 10 minutes that cockpit voice recorder captured in full. For the first few minutes, the cockpit is quiet. The aircraft keeps descending. Air traffic control radios the flight asking why they're losing altitude. There's no answer. They try again, still nothing. Then comes the sound everyone who's heard this recording remembers. The captain is back at the door. He uses the buzzer that requests entry to the cockpit. No response. He calls out, he knocks. The knocking becomes pounding. Investigators describe what sounds like violent blows against the door. The captain trying to force his way back into his own aircraft. On the recording, his voice can be heard asking for the door to be opened. The cockpit door on an A320 was designed to be unbreakable from the outside. After the attacks of September 11th, airlines reinforced these doors so no hijacker could ever force their way in. It worked exactly as designed. It just kept the wrong person out. Below the cabin, controllers scramble. A French Air Force fighter jet is ordered into the air. Another aircraft tries to raise the flights on the radio. No one can reach the cockpit. And throughout all of it, the recorder picks up one more detail that investigators confirmed. The first officer is breathing steadily the entire way down. Conscious, silent, in control. At 11 minutes past 10, the recording stops. The aircraft struck a mountainside in the French Alps, roughly 16 miles northwest of Nice. All 150 people on board were killed instantly. The crash site was brutal terrain, steep, remote, almost impossible to reach. There was no runway nearby, no road. Recovery teams had to be flown in by helicopter and lowered onto the slopes. The cockpit voice recorder was found within a day, damaged but readable. The flight data recorder, the second black box, took longer. It was located about 2 weeks later, charred and buried, its memory module forced out of its casing. In those first hours, the world assumed this was an accident, a mechanical failure, a tragic mystery in the mountain. But when investigators played back the cockpit voice recorder, the story changed completely. The French investigation agency, the BEA, realized within days that this was not an accident at all. They alerted the courts. What had looked like a disaster was now a criminal case. The BEA final report, published in March 2016, was unambiguous. The crash was the result of a deliberate, planned act by the first officer, who locked the captain out and flew a working aircraft into the ground. But the investigators didn't stop at what happened. They asked how it was allowed to happen. And what they found pointed at the entire system for keeping pilots medically fit to fly. In the weeks before the crash, the first officer had been treated for a serious mental illness, what the report describes as a mental disorder with psychiatric symptoms. A doctor had judged him unfit to work. But here was the gap. In aviation, much of medical fitness relies on pilots reporting their own condition. He didn't. He hid the diagnosis from his employer, tore up the sick notes and kept flying. The doctors who treated him were bound by strict medical confidentiality. The airline didn't know, the aviation authority didn't know. The system was built to trust the pilot to come forward, and when he didn't, there was nothing in place to catch it. The response was immediate. Within days, airlines and regulators across Europe and beyond brought in what became known as the two-person rule. From then, if one pilot left the cockpit, a flight attendant had to step in. So there were always two people behind that locked door, never one. It was a simple fix for the exact scenario that had played out on 9525. The deeper changes were harder. Regulators pushed to loosen the wall of medical confidentiality just enough so that when a doctor believes a pilot is a danger to public safety, that concern can reach the authorities. They expanded mental health support and a screening for pilots and random testing programs. The goal was to build a safety net for the one thing aviation had quietly assumed it could trust: the person in the seat. Interestingly, in the years since, some airlines have rolled the two-person rule back, judging that the risk it created were not worth the protecting it offered. The debate is started is not fully settled even now. 150 people boarded a short flight home, trusting two strangers in the front of the plane. The hardest lesson of Germanwings 9525 is that the strongest door in the world only matters as much as the person you've locked inside with it. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and hit the like button. It genuinely helps us and this channel. It helps us telling these stories with the care they deserve. And tell me in the comments, do you think the two-person cockpit rule should have stayed? I'll read every reply. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.